Hi everyone, in this video, we'll be going over general practices for working with two students at a time. The first step to any tutoring session is to assess the student's mastery level. With two students, it's helpful to note whether they're at the same level or different levels to have an idea of how you'll structure this time with them. Students working on the same level can work on problems together or take turns doing problems from the same question set. An additional activity that is very engaging for the students would be to take turns teaching each other material if they have already been fairly comfortable with it. It's more likely you'll be encountering two students at different levels. While they might not get the same engagement from teaching each other what they're doing, you can still make sure that they're both engaged during the session by taking turns doing active work with you and independent work on their own. Active work can include normal tutoring practices like doing a mini lesson, working through a problem together, or having the student explain what they are doing. During this time, the other student can be trying problems on their own, whether from the homework, their tutor, or from online worksheets. If one student seems to be working independently without much trouble, and another student needs more attention, it's totally okay to focus more on the other student while checking in with the independent student every 5 to 10 minutes. Some students might join in without their own questions or homework, which can make independent time less engaging for them. There are several resources you can access to find something the student can work on. Some general resources include our Google Drive, where other volunteers have shared worksheets they found useful, Khan Academy, and Prodigy Game. It is also acceptable for tutors to design their own problems and test specific concepts that were being covered during the session. A general online search may also be sufficient to find worksheets and problems the student can try to test their understanding. Students working independently might finish their problems while you're still actively working with the other student. Remember to encourage patience or direct them to more engaging programs or worksheets so one student does not block out the other student's access to your tutoring. Working with two students is a skill that tutors can develop, but that does mean that there may be some challenges that you'll face. One such challenge is when one student is demanding more attention than the other. This can happen especially when one student is more shy and reserved, while the other is more outgoing and verbal. As the adult in the room, it may be helpful to set some clear boundaries and times for each student. This can look like telling one student that you will switch over to work with the other, and then check in with them when it's their turn. If one of your students seems to be okay doing more independent work, still aim to check in with them every 5 to 10 minutes to give them enough opportunity to get help if needed. Some helpful phrases are shown here to really encourage even your shyest students to engage. With that note, there may be situations where both students are needing a lot of attention, and one is not able to do independent work just yet. This can be overwhelming as a tutor, so take a deep breath. These situations can get stressful, but having a set structure can help to give both students as much assistance as you can. Instead of taking turns every 5 to 10 minutes, it may be more helpful to be taking turns by the problem, so there are shorter intervals of independent work between both students. If a student's problem is taking more than 5 to 10 minutes to work out together, it's fine to take a break in the middle of the problem to check in with the other students so they don't feel forgotten. Even with these techniques, sometimes it's just too much for one tutor to handle, and that's okay. Try reaching out to the supervisor via Slack or discreetly in the meeting to see if there's another room that the student can be more engaged in. The students will appreciate your efforts to balance their needs so they can get the most out of their time with Mastery Hour. Another situation that you will likely encounter is when one student is being especially distracting or disruptive. Especially with the younger students, there may be many possible reasons that math is not the priority on their mind at the time. A helpful first step to handle the situation is to try and identify the reason for distraction. It's perfectly fine to disengage from the math, to chat about their day, ask them their opinions on what they're working on, or acknowledge and reassure them that it's okay if they have a distracting environment. Once you have an idea of what is keeping them from focusing, you can help them problem solve and take steps to get into the right environment and mindset. For example, thinking of ways together that what they are learning relates to something in real life, or taking turns to talk about something math and then something non-math related can be a way to mix in stuff that they're focused on, the stuff that you would like to focus on. You could also ask them if there's any other place that they can move to or some way to distance themselves from the source of distraction to give them express permission to get more comfortable with their learning. Even when working with 2 students, it's important to remember our main priorities. We aim to create a positive and open environment, which may sometimes involve taking on a bit of time to break away from the math drills and problems to engage with the students personally. Sometimes students will just not be having a good day to focus and be resistant to group or online tutoring. It happens, and there's no shame in not being 100% all of the time. If you believe that your student needs a more serious talk to touch base, especially if there's another student in the room, please reach out to your supervisor to help assist the student. They might not be completely actively engaged with their tutor 100% of their time with Mastery Hour, but sometimes what the student needs is some space to decompress or do some independent work in the main room before trying again in the tutoring breakout room. Working with and balancing the needs of 2 students can be challenging, but this opens the opportunity for collaboration and brings your service to more students who could use the help. If you have any questions after this video or about any specific situation, please reach out to us on Slack so that we can work through these challenges together. Thank you so much for watching this video and for your efforts to keep Mastery Learning Hour running smoothly.